about that.
A very disrespectful comment also on my part. It's so
okay.
Honestly,
Okay. Thank you.
I feel like this is something that gets misconstrued.
Okay.
Okay.
Well,
Publicly,
let's
Clear it up.
But she's going to have to pipe down. She's not going to be able to say much about anything.
If you haven't been paying attention, this moment right here is exactly why the internet is in a frenzy. Steph and Ayesha Curry sitting down on the Michelle Obama podcast, opening up about their relationship. And somehow, one specific part explodes across every social media platform because Ayesha Curry is finally owning up to things she said about her husband. And trust me, we're about to break down everything that led to this moment because there's a lot to unpack. And I've definitely got some thoughts on it.
If I ain't having a game or if she was nervous or like vice versa, like neither one of us really it was just,
I feel like this is something that gets misconstrued.
Okay. Well,
Publicly,
let's
Clear it.
And as the conversation naturally unfolds, they start revisiting the beginning, how it all started, what sparked that first connection, how two people go from being just friends to something deeper. And right in the middle of that reflection, she pauses and pivots, bringing up the fact that some things from the past may have been misunderstood, almost like she's trying to reset the narrative in real time.
So, no, it's not that you didn't have game. I was 14 years old. I was not allowed to talk to boys.
Okay. Yeah, that
So
does make a difference.
That
It's
is
14.
the difference.
But here's where it gets interesting, because calling it misconstrued doesn't quite land the way she might think it does, especially when for years she's consistently told the same story, that they met when they were 14. That part has never been confusing, never been twisted. It's always been clear. So hearing that now, suddenly framed differently, raises a few eyebrows.
Mr. Steph Curry, you met him in high school?
Yeah, I moved to the States at 14 to North Carolina, and that's actually where we met. He's one of the first people that I met in the States, but just friends.
And maybe what she's really getting at is the idea of being judged as an adult for things she expressed as a teenager, which on the surface makes sense. But even looking back, it's not just about age. It's about how those same tones and perspectives have carried into later conversations.
Yeah, no, I'm putting you,
But did I think you were cute? Absolutely.
And that's exactly why people have reacted the way they have, because it's felt less like a one-time thing and more like a pattern that keeps resurfacing. And that's what makes this latest moment feel so different, because if you compare it to what she said in a more recent podcast appearance, the energy just doesn't match. She painted him as just the guy at church, never really leaning into any kind of admiration, even when the interviewer practically handed her opportunities to shift that narrative into something softer or more flattering.
Did you ever have anything in high school at all, or it was legit just friends?
No, just friends. Just friends. Yeah.
I get what you're saying, like you never saw him as something, but I'm like, when you look back, is there any memory that you're like, maybe there was something or
No, never.
And even when she was pressed, like really given the chance to admit there was at least something there, some level of attraction, she doubled down, calmly shutting it down with a firm no. Not at all, leaving no room for interpretation, no hint of hesitation.
But did you? I also heard you had a no athletes rule.
That is true.
So tell me about that.
A very disrespectful comment also on my part. It's so honestly,
Okay. Thank you.
Which is why that moment during the Michelle Obama podcast hits a little differently, especially when Michelle Obama's brother reacts and you catch Steph Curry leaning back. And maybe it's nothing, but it feels like the kind of laugh that comes after private conversations have already happened. Like boundaries were set behind closed doors about how certain things come across publicly.
Yes,
That's really nice of you to straighten that
Why
out.
is that disrespectful?
I had very textbook, maybe misconceptions.
like kind of frame like movie plots. And
Movie
like,
plot
it's like-
ideas of athletes,
Stereotype.
the jock
Yeah,
stereotype.
Okay.
And that's why the energy from Michelle Obama's brother stands out so much, because he doesn't just nod along. He leans into it, almost affirming, almost calling it what it is. Like, yes, you were wrong. And it's refreshing to hear you admit that out loud.
This is another thing that gets misconstrued. People, for some reason, think that in the past I've said that he wasn't my type. What I was saying was, I didn't think I was his type.
Yeah.
Because this was Mr. Cool.
Yeah.
I kind of sold myself short and thinking like, oh, there's no way. He must just like me as a friend.
And this is where it becomes even more layered, because when people try to clarify or revisit past statements, they sometimes forget that the audience remembers everything. We were there. We heard it. We saw those interviews. And I personally remember covering the one where she openly talked about not wanting marriage or kids at that time.
4 kids. Did you always knew you wanted a big family?
No. So I didn't want kids. I didn't want to get married.
And within that same conversation is where she casually described him as just the cool guy at church. Nothing more, nothing deeper.
Like in high school, like on the court, you're like,
No.
at church, he was the guy.
At church.
Was he the basketball guy in high school or no?
Apparently he was, but I genuinely didn't pay attention to that.
And the thing is, that narrative never once came across as someone holding back out of insecurity or fear that he was out of her league. In fact, it's always felt like the opposite, like she viewed herself as the prize in the relationship, carrying that confidence in a way that even sparked commentary from people like Kevin Samuels.
She's better than, and honestly, she's jealous of him. She's jealous because I'm sitting at home, pumped out 3 kids, and he's on TV every day. He's getting all the fame. He's getting all the red carpet treatment. He's getting all this. And only time she gets attention is attention that he deflects to her. We wouldn't know about Ayesha Curry if it wasn't for Steph. She thinks she's up here, and she thinks he's down here.
So when people now hear this newer version of events, it doesn't quite align, because there was never a time where the public saw him framed as this untouchable, too cool figure in her eyes. Even when prompted, she kept it grounded, almost dismissive.
We're gonna say like in high school, like on the court, you're like, at
No.
church, he was the guy.
At church.
What?
And that's why this shift feels so telling, because she's never before suggested that she held back due to feeling like she wasn't his type, which makes it seem like something has changed behind the scenes. Like conversations happened within their household, and now, sitting next to him, there's a subtle rewriting happening, especially when you remember moments like her appearance with Jada, where she talked about him getting all the attention while she didn't.
Something that really bothers me and like honestly has given me a sense of a little bit of an insecurity is the fact that like there are all these women like throwing themselves, but me, like the past 10 years, like I don't have any of that. Like I have zero, this sounds weird, but like male attention. Because I don't want it, but it'd be nice to know that like someone's looking.
And then you think about that time on The Real, when she was visibly uncomfortable with a shirtless server and joked about struggling to keep her ring on.
Marcel!
So when you piece all of that together, this new narrative of feeling beneath him or lucky to be chosen starts to feel unfamiliar.
I didn't think I was his type.
Yeah.
Because this was Mr. Cool.
Yeah.
I kind of sold myself short and thinking like, oh, there's no way. He must just like me as a friend.
And if we're being completely honest, it comes across as a full-on backtrack. Like, not even a subtle one, but a very deliberate shift in tone.
Ayesha.
So I won't even take it.
Ayesha.
I'm glad it didn't.
Ayesha.
She left the door open.
I'm glad I
yeah.
didn't
I
get
was
friend
gonna
zoned.
I would have to
She,
say.
every time I texted her call, she picked up the phone
Yeah.
after I was in full court press. So.
Which brings us right back to Michelle Obama's brother, because his reaction feels like the audience speaking through him, not letting it slide so easily. And the way he challenges it, almost playfully but still direct, feels like he's saying what a lot of people are thinking. Like, don't come in here rewriting history when we've all been watching this play out for years, because that version of events just doesn't match what we've seen.
I thought I was going to be career girl and that's it. And I had my eyes set on my goals. And I was never the little girl that like dreamt about the wedding dress and all of that. And then it happened so early in my life.
And at the end of the day, let's be real. Ayesha and Steph Curry have built a life together. 4 children, a strong foundation, and from everything we can see, he's not going anywhere. He's standing firmly beside his wife, and he's always spoken highly of her, always carried himself as a stand-up guy.
Married when you're 23 years old. Why get married so young?
Why waste time if you found the right one?
Which makes the contrast even more noticeable, because when she's asked about that same life, there's often been a tone that doesn't quite mirror his.
4 kids. Did you always knew you wanted a big family?
No. So I didn't want kids. I didn't want to get married.
And naturally, that shapes public perception, because people look at him and see someone respectful, grounded, and supportive. And they expect that same energy in return. Someone who publicly uplifts him, honors him, and shows appreciation for what they have.
She does not view Steph Curry as the NBA All-Star World Champion basketball player. She views Steph Curry as this guy that her mom and dad and her parents told her, you need to marry and secure the bag. She didn't want to be there.
And while everyone is entitled to their opinion, it's understandable why this dynamic stands out, especially when you compare it to other relationships in the spotlight, where even in messy situations, you don't always see spouses publicly framing things in a negative light, which is why this recent conversation feels like an intentional cleanup, a moment to reset the narrative with both of them sitting side by side. But even with that, honesty matters. And if we're keeping it real, a lot of what was said in the past wasn't misunderstood. It was heard clearly, maybe interpreted differently now, but definitely not misheard. And still, if this marks a shift moving forward, that's not a bad thing at all. Growth is growth, whether it's personal, relational, or even strategic, and choosing to speak differently, to present things with more care, can only help. And maybe, for him, none of this was ever an issue. Maybe he's completely unbothered, living that happy wife, happy life mindset. But if this change means that moving forward, his public image isn't tied to unnecessary negativity, that's a win. And while relationships evolve, not every phase of that evolution needs to be broadcast in every interview. Sometimes growth is better shown than spoken. And with that being said, I definitely want to hear what you think about all of this. So drop your thoughts below, make sure you subscribe, hit that like button, and I'll catch you in the next one.